Hi, I'm Jim Zogby, and welcome to Viewpoint. On tonight's program, we'll get a look at the current situation in Egypt and in Syria. We're going to talk to U.S. Ambassador, former U.S. Ambassador to Jordan and Kuwait, Ed Ghanem. And then we're going to hear from Iowa pollster Ann Seltzer on how the Republican presidential candidates are faring in the lead up to the Iowa caucuses. But first, we're going to take a look at the war in Iraq. It's officially over, we're told, but we want to look at the lessons learned and the work that lies ahead in that country. For that, I want to welcome to the show Andrew Parasiliti. He's Executive Director of the International Institute for Strategic Studies here in the U.S. and Corresponding Director of their Middle East office. He served as Foreign Policy Advisor to Senator Chuck Hagel and was Director of the Middle East Initiative at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government. Thanks for joining us, Andrew.
Thank you for having me.
Let me start with the President's announcement. Does the U.S. get bragging rights that the war is over? And if it goes sour, as it seems to be heading in that direction, what does that do politically here at home in terms of his being able to talk about the war and getting out of Iraq as an accomplishment?
Yeah, it's a good question, Jim. President Obama campaigned to end the war in Iraq. He called for a responsible end to the war. He always thought it was the wrong thing. He made that clear during the 2008 campaign. And during the Bush administration, the U.S. agreed with Iraq to withdraw its forces from Iraq by December 2011, and that's where we are. President Obama comes into office. He is committed to that deadline. So, and it was a popular move. I think Americans had mostly tired of the war in Iraq. It's been costly. 4,500, nearly 4,500 Americans dead, 32,000 wounded, and a cost of more than $800 billion. What's happened is that the events of the last few weeks have raised a question in the minds of some that President Obama's decision to go ahead with that deadline, as he had planned, has somehow complicated the situation in Iraq, and that keeping troops in Iraq would have been a way of tamping down the problems we now see in Iraqi politics.
But there wasn't a way to do that, given the fact that the Iraqis themselves wanted to stick to the agreement that was signed with George Bush, and their political system wouldn't have allowed for a remaining of U.S. troops.
That's a good point. The Obama administration made a really strong run at trying to get an agreement with Iraq to continue some type of U.S. military presence. This happened throughout the spring and the summer. It seemed to be at the time a priority of U.S. negotiations, and the Iraqis didn't want it. And the issue where it got stuck up was on the issue of immunity for U.S. forces. You know that this is a prickly issue in Iraqi politics because of post-colonial history and because of what happened in Abu Ghraib, and also in terms of civilians that have been killed or wounded by American troops. So that wasn't going to happen. So this decision in Iraq is Iraq's decision. They have their freedom, they have their decision, and the consequences of those decisions.
Now, we're seeing now tensions accelerating. Today there was a whole spate of bombings in Baghdad proper. You have the vice president from the Iraqi list now having gone to Kurdistan seeking refuge from a warrant for his arrest, charging him with involvement in terrorism. But if this tension continues to escalate and there's a sign of disintegration in the country, is there a U.S. responsibility? And I don't mean just in the moral sense, because I think that, you know, going back to whatever the parentage of the statement was that said if you break it, you own it. Right. Not in that moral sense, but is there a U.S. responsibility to somehow do something here?
I think it's not only a responsibility for the U.S. to be engaged, it's in our interest to be engaged. And the Obama administration has been engaged the last few days. Vice President Biden has been on the phones with the Iraqi leadership. CIA Director General Petraeus has gone to Iraq. Ambassador Jeffrey left his vacation to return to try to do the important diplomacy that's needed. While U.S. troops have left Iraq. Iraq remains important to the United States, given what's happening in Syria, given what's happening with Iran, and what's happening internally in Iraq itself. So yes, the U.S. will be involved in Iraq, but again, Iraqi politics and their problems may or may not have been related to whether the troops stayed or not. This is their issue, and the politics continue to be volatile.
What leverage do we have?
The leverage that we have with Iraq is first arms. And the president announced arms agreement to sell advanced aircraft to Iraq. Economic and other commitments. We have a very long strategic framework agreement with Iraq that covers all sorts of areas in economics and industry, education, and so forth. The U.S. is still a key power in the region. Iraqis are generally appreciative of our getting rid of Saddam Hussein, and the U.S. has a role to play in Iraq and in the region. But we can't assume in that context that Iraqi interests and policies are a direct match of those of the United States.
Now, I always used to say, it's not a question of the date you leave, but it's what you do between now and the date you leave. Mm-hmm. We're gone. We're out.
Right, we're out.
But did we do what we needed to do to prepare for a responsible departure? For example, one of the recommendations of the Iraq Study Group was the creation of a regional security framework.
Yeah.
Did we fail in not doing that? Did our refusal to somehow bring Iran in with Saudi and Jordan and Syria and Turkey and Kuwait in a sitting around the table in a permanent structure to not be able to play under the table but sit around the table and face each other as we did with East-West divide during the days of the Iron Curtain? Was that a failure, or were there just no conditions to set that kind of framework up?
I think it would have been better from day one, when you go back to 2003, if we had had a regional consensus, a regional plan, a regional strategy to deal with Iraq, to help its stability, to help its integration back into the region. That never happened. Not to say that's easy. I mean, especially now we see what's going on in Syria and the problems that are taking place in Iran. There were some talks between the U.S. and Iran in Baghdad. But that so far has been a problem, and Iraq can't be separated from the volatile regional politics that are going on today.
We left, the troops are gone, but there's going to be 17,000 Americans in the country. Is that excessive?
Seems a little excessive to me. The problem we're facing now is that the U.S. Embassy, which is now the largest in the world, the budget request for it is $3.8 billion. That's quite a sum. And many of the costs associated with that have to do with security, have to do with support staff for our personnel, for the largest embassy structure in the world, as well as the amount of the personnel. So I'm not sure with the money we're paying to have that large structure that we're getting the output in diplomacy that one might expect.
If you want to get in the conversation, join us. If you're calling from overseas, the number is 001-202-420-5666. If you're calling from here in the U.S., it's 1-202-420-5730. Actually, it's 5665 if you're calling from overseas, 5665. I want to get back to the leverage issue. We obviously don't send troops back in, and I'm not sure that troops going in would make the situation anything but worse at this point. But here you have a situation where the vice president has gone to the Kurdish region, Kurdistan, seeking refuge. There already are tensions between north and south, between the Kurdish area and and the rest of Iraq over Kirkuk and oil, unfinished business on an oil contract. If you end up with some violent confrontation, who goes in? Who does anything there? Or are the Iraqis now on their own to deal with these issues? And is that a good thing?
The Iraqis are mostly on their own to deal with these issues. The U.S. troops have left, but that does not mean that the U.S. will not continue to be heavily engaged in trying to keep the parties from what is now a very intense, difficult, volatile situation from becoming a violent situation. The timing could not have been worse from an American perspective. The accusations against Vice President al-Hashimi coming as they did with televised confessions. As you know, that does not go over well in the United States and brings back the wrong type of memories about Iraq. There's supposed to be a judicial process that remains to be seen, but right now Iraqi politics are in deep crisis, and Prime Minister Maliki gave a long press conference yesterday, and he was very assertive, and that he is demanding immediate negotiation. He's sticking by the charges, or he's going to go for what he calls a majority government, which is chucking the agreement they have now that brought the parties together in November 2010 after the election. So Iraqi politics are in a difficult state right now, and if they're to get themselves out of it, I think the U.S. is going to be instrumental in making that happen.
Al-Hashimi goes to the Kurdish area. What does that say by itself about Iraqi unity, and does it further strain an already delicate situation there?
Well, according to Prime Minister Maliki in his press conference yesterday, he was threatening to the Kurds in terms of handing over Hashimi, or there will be problems, as he said. The Kurds have an important role to play in Iraq. There are tensions between Prime Minister Maliki, Baghdad, and the Kurds over oil contracts, over Kirkuk and other disputed territories which are unresolved and get to the heart of the federal state of Iraq. And that seems very much in play, and Prime Minister Maliki right now is forcing the issue.
It's intriguing to me that this happened within days after the U.S. left. Mm-hmm. It also happens within the week after al-Maliki is here in Washington.
Right.
Do you suspect that this issue came up with Washington when he was here, or do you think that the administration here has been blindsided by this? If this investigation has been ongoing, could it have been raised with the White House when he was here?
I just don't know if it was. It seems to me, I haven't spoken to anyone in the White House about this, but it seems to me that the administration was probably blindsided by the extent of what's happened. Certainly the reaction, when you look at the public statements and actions by the Obama administration, indicate that this was a crisis that they probably did not anticipate.
Let's take a call from UK. We have one holding right now. Caller, your question.
Hi, Mr. Zogby. I just wanted to greet you and your guest.
Thank you.
I have a question for your guest, please.
Sure.
My question is, do the USA has any contingency plan or plan B for Iraq if the situation escalated in the future?
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
It's a good question. We're in a crisis, and it's a difficult one. With regard to a contingency or a plan B, I just don't know at this state. There have been discussions of whether the U.S. should threaten to withhold whatever leverage we were discussing that they might have, whether it be in the realm of economic assistance, the arms sales and arms support, to put pressure on Prime Minister Maliki and the government of Iraq to reach some type of consensus and work their way out of this crisis. What we've seen over the last 8 years is that the U.S. Leverage is there. It's an important player, but we're not the only player. And again, the main players are the Iraqis themselves.
To what extent is there an Iranian hand in this? And to what extent does increased pressure from the U.S. push al-Maliki further in an Iranian direction, if so?
That's a good question, often discussed here in Washington. As you know, one of the arguments of those who said we should have kept the troops in Iraq said that this would have been leverage against the influence of Iran. Look, when we overthrew Iran, it was Saddam Hussein, excuse me. When we overthrew Saddam Hussein in Iraq, it was a strategic windfall for Iran. That started in 2003. The Iranian influence is substantial in Iraq. Many of the Iraqi Shiite leaders in particular stayed in Iran, received support from Iran when they were in exile in opposition to Saddam's regime. Iran has political, economic, and cultural influence in Iraq. They also are involved in intelligence, terrorism, crime, all sorts of activities. Prime Minister Maliki may be walking a difficult and fine line. I don't think he wants a problem with Iraq, and whether he's aligned with Iran, sorry, that's a different question.
Let me go to Texas for a call. Caller?
Yeah, hi. I'm Kima from, I'm Carla from Kima.
Yeah, from Cuba? Okay.
Kima, Texas, yeah.
Oh, Cuba, Texas, sorry. Okay.
Pardon?
Okay, I get you. Thank you.
Okay, well, I used to do survey research in the Middle East also, and Mr. Zogby, I'm going to email you sometime, but my question is this. We have issues where now Hillary is pictured with people that are identified as the Taliban, and then we have someone of the stature of Biden saying, oh, well, the Taliban really are not our enemies. Well, excuse me, how many people did we send looking for them in the Middle East? Mm-hmm. I really have a problem. I'd like to have your take on it, and I'll hang up and listen.
Thank you. You saw that quote. There's an effort on the part of the U.S. to sort of create a process whereby the Taliban can be brought into a negotiating situation in Afghanistan. Talk about that if you can.
Sure. As the U.S. anticipates a withdrawal from Afghanistan and tries as part of that process to reach some type of political consensus and agreement within Afghanistan, it makes sense that the U.S. at some level would be talking to some elements, the nonviolent elements, within the Taliban movement. This has been supported by all of the key parties who have been involved. Karzai himself has also advocated those types of talks. Again, I can't speak for the administration, but it seems to me that's probably what the Vice President is referring to, which is the need for a negotiated process with the Taliban as part of a reconciliation process in Afghanistan.
Give me your best guess as to where this is going to go. You have the Iraqi list ministers pulling out, boycotting parliament.
Right.
You have the vice president in exile. You have the deputy prime minister, also of that list, being accused of having made inflammatory statements saying that al-Maliki is behaving worse than Saddam, and being threatened as well. Short term, long term, where does this play out? Does al-Maliki continue to consolidate strength? Does he push these folks away, or is there a chance that this could be resolved in some more amicable manner? Or do they cross the Rubicon?
I don't know if they've crossed the Rubicon. Solving in an amicable manner seems difficult at this stage. Accusing the vice president of terrorism is a big step. The issues with the Kurds, as we've discussed, have been there and are now also brought to a head. I think it's going to be a rough few weeks and months in Iraq. And Jim, let's not forget that these issues that we're talking about here, between Iraqia and the State of Law Party, between Sunnis and Shias, between Baghdad and the Kurds, these are not new to Iraqi politics. They have been there since, even before the liberation of Iraq in 2003, and they continue. They're an Iraqi issue. We left Iraq in the state where the political institutions, political parties, and political processes have a long way to go before they reach the level of democracy and engagement that we expect. On the other hand, Iraqi politics has lived on the edge of confrontation and crisis.
Let's go to France for a call. Caller? Hello?
Hi.
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, your question?
Yeah, thank you very much. I want to speak about al-Hashimi. What do you think about Iraqi judiciary now? So the man is accused of killing many Iraqi people. What do you think about the Iraqi judiciary now.
The Iraqi what?
The Iraqi justice, I mean.
The Iraqi judicial system.
Yeah.
Is there the possibility of a fair trial? I think that might be the question.
It's a key question. The way that the Hashemi case has been handled has raised big questions about the existence of an independent judiciary in Iraq and whether Vice President Hashemi can get a fair trial if one is preceded by, again, televised confessions and the list of accusations before the judicial process has even really formally begun. So again, another big question for Iraq.
Thank you for joining us, Andrew.
Thank you for having me.
When we come back, we're going to take a look at current state of unrest in Egypt and in Syria. We're going to do it with former Middle East Ambassador Edward Ghanem, and we'll take more of your calls, so stay tuned.
Next. Is that okay?
It's a mess.